All right, we go to the second highest graded defenseman who finished the season with the team, Mr. Nick Seeler. This one I was really, really surprised.
I kind of was
that
too.
he finished second here.
I know, and we're going to get to the guy third because
Yeah.
I know that the perception of Cam York's season is very, very positive. The numbers do not share that evaluation, and we'll get to that in a second. Whereas with Nick Seeler, I do think that the injury at the end of the year it's allowed people to forget just how good he was for most of the year.
And like the injury coincides with Sean Walker going away.
Right.
And then he comes back and he doesn't have the dude who he played all that awesome hockey with for the first 68 games of the year, whatever it was. So Nick Seeler gets a B+ from Charlie O'Connor. I don't know if I can disagree. Like, I have no idea how to evaluate Nick Seeler. He's just like, it's a lot like Nick Delorier. Like, what do I expect out of him? But given what I expected out of Nick Seeler to start the season, B+ might be low.
Yeah, but one guy is good at hockey, and the other
I just mean like
Which one are you referring
I
to,
expected
Charlie?
Nick Seeler. Like my highest possible expectation is dude who plays on the third pair and you don't mind him. And he was considerably better than that this year. Like I think B+ might be low for Nick Seeler.
He was a second pair defenseman this year.
Yeah, and like effective.
Right. There's not a universe in which anyone ahead of this season would have said that like Nick Seeler would have been one of the most sought after defensemen at the trade deadline because his season had been so good. Like no one would have predicted
They
this.
re-signed him for probably a little more than is like advisable. And I'm all right with it. I don't think it's terrible. I'm fine.
My viewpoint is that purely from a value standpoint, I think that is a good value contract because I think this season and last season, frankly, he's provided more value than the cap hit that the Flyers gave him, and significantly more to the point where even if you account for the aging curve, I think that will ultimately be viewed as a good contract. Now, whether the Flyers are the team that should have given it to him is another story, but if he would have went and signed somewhere else, he probably would have signed for more because he just likes to be in Philly. This is the place where he revitalized his career. I just think with Seeler, I think it was totally reasonable after not this just concluded season, but the season before, when he established himself as a perfectly fine third pair defenseman. I think it was totally reasonable for fans and analysts to look at that season and say the Flyers should sell high on Nick Seeler because he's been a plug-in, healthy scratch guy for pretty much his entire career. Like he's a number 7 defenseman who had one season where he looked like a good third pair guy. That's probably not who he really is. The Flyers should trade him before he crashes back to earth. That was frankly my expectation. My expectation was that he was probably going to crash back to earth and was going to turn back into a number 7. My hope was that he was going to stay a legitimately good third pair defenseman. I am blown away that he didn't just stay as a legitimately good third pair defenseman. He became a legitimately good second pair defenseman.
Yes, he did.
Did Walker help? Yeah, Walker helped. Walker was the better of those two guys. But it's not like Seeler sucked when he was with guys like Sanheim and Drysdale, I guess with the exception of that one really awful game at the end of the year.
They were like -5.
When he was with Risto, he was fine. The only guy he really struggled with was Zamula. But like, I don't think that highly of Igor Zamula either.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to him. But to me, Seeler, yes, he was helped by Sean Walker. It was a pairing that worked for both of them. But I didn't watch that pairing and think that Nick Seeler was getting dragged to relevancy by Sean Walker. I think Sean Walker was playing great hockey, and Nick Seeler was playing good hockey. He was a perfectly acceptable number four defenseman this year. And not only did he prove that the previous year wasn't a 1 year out of nowhere spike, that he's actually gotten significantly, measurably better as a player in his late 20s. Props to him.
No, I think we've all been impressed with Seeler, and now the question is replicating it.
He already I guess maybe he might not replicate this, but now I'm looking at next season thinking that the worst case scenario is he goes back to where he was two seasons ago when he was a perfectly good third pair defenseman. I'm fine with that.
We saw a little preview at the end of the year of a pair that seems to make a lot of sense on paper.
Oh, Seeler Drysdale.
Drysdale.
Yeah.
It did not go well.
Well, okay, to be fair, Drysdale.
They're both like Seeler's coming back from injury. Drysdale was playing through a core muscle, and like his whole thing is speed. And guess what?
Was not healthy.
Nipples
ever,
to knees,
really.
something's ripped.
Right. Yeah.
And Seeler wasn't healthy either.
No, both
he came
were
back
hurt.
from a broken foot.
Like,
yeah,
I do think that pair has a lot of potential, and I think a whole off season and a whole camp, like if they chain them together, they could get something there.
I think they showed flashes. There were games where I thought they looked pretty good. It was just that Montreal game lingers in everyone's heads.
Oh, it was
because
real bad.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't just bad. Like they looked like they weren't an NHL caliber player.
No,
it was
bad.
awful.
Yeah.
I think there's potential there.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is like my dream, and I don't quite know how they would do this, I guess it would probably involve them trading for someone in the offseason. My dream would be start out the season with Drysdale Seeler as your third pair. And basically start out Drysdale, because you are now, next year, you are going to be essentially developing Jamie Drysdale. That is going to be one of the low-key big stories of the season is, okay, we're going to start from scratch with this guy, and we're going to try to turn him into the player we think he can be. I would like it if that starts out with him getting third pair usage, him getting sheltered minutes with a good partner in Nick Seeler, getting the kind of usage that we know Nick Seeler can thrive in. Like we know Nick Seeler can handle second pair minutes. We know he can kill it in third pair minutes. I would like to see that start out as the third pair if you could possibly find a way to pull it off, and then let them earn additional ice time and harder minutes. Because like, I guess, I mean, if you bring back Risto, I would assume that York Sanheim is your first pair. You bring back Risto, I mean, maybe you throw Zamula to the Wolves and say, hey guys, see what you can do, because we care much more about developing Drysdale better than developing you better. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I guess the ideal world would be you trade for like a Chikrin or something. And I'm not even saying, I don't even love Jacob Chikrin, but just like the concept of a guy
who can, it's almost Provorov-esque. Well, we know he can take the minutes.
Yeah.
Like, if they were to go get, say, a Chikrin, like, all right, I just don't see
why.
Let's develop our own. You know, we got a whole lot of picks.
Because we haven't seen, I don't think, enough of any of the young defensemen to know what we have in any of them.
No, like, and that's, I would, as much as I want to see, like, you didn't evaluate any of these guys, but like, as much as I want to see Drysdale brought along the right way and this whole third pair thing makes sense, I also want to get, they don't have to play every game, but like this group of defensemen that they have in the AHL, let's give them all a month. You know, let's see what happens, and then go from there after Christmas, reevaluate who should be on this team to start 2025. You know, like make something of these guys. I'm tired of seeing veterans in the lineup who are not going to be here.
I guess I could envision, I understand why the Flyers in like February and March, they were floating the possibility of getting another defenseman. And it wouldn't be like a veteran, it would be a guy in his like mid-20s, because I do think a lot of that was driven by, and we're getting into Drysdale before we actually even get to the grade, but like a lot of that was driven by the idea of, we don't think Drysdale is ready for top 4 minutes yet, and if we want to develop him, we're going to need someone to push him down. I'm just intrigued to see how this offseason plays out, but I would love it if the Seeler-Drysdale pairing, if they found some way for that to be used as the third pair to start the year, and then let them earn their way up. Let Drysdale in particular, because we know Seeler can handle it now after 2 years of handling it. Let Drysdale earn his way up the lineup, and hopefully he does. And then hopefully by this time next year, we're talking about like, man, Drysdale is looking like, I'm not expecting next year for Jamie Drysdale to be his breakout year, but I want him to show real progress. And I want to be of the opinion this time next year that like, oh man, next year Jamie Drysdale might take that big old step.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
I want to see him thrive in at least the specialized roles.
Right.
Like, all right, you're going to play third pair minutes. Hopefully you don't suck.
Yeah.
And then the power play makes a dramatic improvement. It would still be like mediocre at best.
Third.
Yeah,
that would be good.
Like he has a bunch of power play points, and they're at 17% like, you know, like that would be okay. So we do maybe have something, at least if he's not a number one, like roles you can play him in that will maximize the talents he does have.
One thing I do want to talk about before we leave the Seeler conversation, because I mentioned this in the piece, in the Die Hard piece on allphly.com. I know that the idea of culture can be overrated.
Mm-hmm.
I, however, do think that Nick Seeler, like, I've talked to enough people and I watched enough of this team to believe that Nick Seeler actually does legitimately provide intangible value. I cannot tell you, there were about probably like 2 or 3 players that unprompted, and I think Jonesy brought this up too to me, whether it was on the record or off the record, I don't remember. But there was a play. I mean, he wouldn't care. This is like a positive thing about Nick Seeler. There was a play in the October Dallas game where Travis Konechny takes a hard hit. It wasn't a dirty hit, but it was a hard hit. This is your best player from Yanni Hakanpää, who's 6'7". He's a fucking giant. And Nick Seeler basically runs up to him, challenges him to a fight, and then beats the snot out of him. And I've heard multiple players tell me that, like, that was the moment when we were like, oh man, like, these guys have my back. Like, this is a team. This is a special group. Mm-hmm. Because, like, Nick Seeler should not be without hesitation running up to fight a dude who's like probably 5 inches taller than him and like an actual giant. And also he should not be kicking the crap out of him. And he did without even thinking. And that was a galvanizing moment for the team that didn't get talked about a lot. I also look at the block shots. Mm-hmm. I am very skeptical. And, like, I don't know this for a fact, but you're talking about Cam York jumped from 69 blocks as a freshman. Nice. As a rookie, I guess. Yeah. To 174 this season. I am skeptical that he does that if Nick Seeler is not on this team, setting the example, and then Nick Seeler, with another one of his ridiculous blocks, comes back to the bench, and everybody's like hammering him on the back. Great job, Seals! Like, you know, that rallies the troops. And then Cam York's for a little further down the bench, and kind of like, I want that. You know, I want to get that. I want that feeling. And then he's in the heat of the moment. He's going to be just a little bit more willing to block a shot. I think Nick Seeler did legitimately provide intangible, unmeasurable value to this team, which is why I don't have a major issue with them re-signing him, because I think that's real. I think even if it's intangible, I think it's real.
We all silly like the mayor.